The night was thick with silence, broken only by the low, guttural hum of cicadas clinging to the baobab trees that ringed the village of Mwamba. The moon hung low, a bloated silver coin in the sky, casting long, trembling shadows across the red earth. A single oil lamp flickered in the window of the tailor's hut. The tailor's hut, its yellow light pulsing like a dying heartbeat. Inside, the air was heavy with the smell of sweat, old cloth, and something else. Something wrong. Something like burnt hair and damp earth, like a grave disturbed in the rain. A hand, pale and trembling, reached for the door latch. It belonged to young Amara, her bare feet silent on the packed soil. She'd not meant to come here, but the dream had come again. The same dream, night after night, for 7 nights. In it, she stood at the edge of the village square, watching as the tailor, old man Django, stitched together a suit made not of cotton or silk, but of skin. Human skin, stretched taut over bone, threaded with sinew and hair. And the suit moved, it stood, it breathed, and when it turned to look at her, its eyes were hollow, yet full of rage. And tonight, the dream had whispered a name, Amara, come see. She pushed the door open. The room was a tomb of cloth and shadow, bolts, of indigo, kente, and mud cloth, hung like funeral shrouds from the rafters. Mannequins stood frozen in mid-gesture, their wooden bodies draped in garments that seemed too alive. One had a coat with sleeves that twitched, as if caught in a breeze that didn't exist. Another wore a hat with a brim that curled upward, like a serpent tasting the air. And there, in the center of the room, bent over a wooden table lit by the guttering lamp, was old man Django. He was hunched, his back like a broken bow, his fingers long and knotted like roots. His eyes, deep set, yellowed with age and something darker, were fixed on the garment before him. It was a suit, but not of any cloth Amara had ever seen. The fabric shimmered with a sickly sheen, like oil on water. It was stitched with thread that looked too thick, too meaty, and the seams, they pulsed, gently, like veins. Django's needle plunged in and out, swift and sure. Each stitch made a sound, thuck, 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 like a heart beating through cloth. Then he spoke, not to her, to the suit. Almost done, he whispered, voice cracked like dry riverbed. Almost ready. You will walk among them. You will be them, and they will never know. Amara's breath caught in her throat. The suit twitched. One of its arms lifted slightly, fingers curling like claws. Django turned his head slowly, his eyes locked onto hers. Ah, he said, not surprised. The dreamer has come. Amara tried to run, but her legs would not obey. The door slammed shut behind her, though no one had touched it. I've been waiting for you, Django said, rising. You see what others cannot. You feel what others ignore. That is why the spirit sent you. I don't understand, Amara whispered. What are you doing? Django smiled. It was Kofi, a farmer. He found gold beneath his cassava field. The village chief took it. When Kofi protested, they said he lied. They beat him. Then they buried him in the riverbank where the floods would wash his bones away. But the earth remembered. And I remembered. He ran a finger along the suit's collar. I took what was left, a scrap of skin from his shoulder, a lock of hair from his grave, a piece of bone from his hand. I sewed them into this suit, and now he is coming back. The suit stood. It rose slowly like a man waking from a long sleep. Its shoulders rolled, its neck cracked, the eyes sunken, black but focused, turned toward Amara. It took a step, and the ground trembled. Amara screamed, but no sound came out. The suit turned its head toward Django. A voice, dry and broken, like wind through dry reeds, rasped from its throat. You promised justice, Django nodded. And justice you shall have, tonight. Then, from the shadows behind the mannequins, more figures began to stir. Coats with too long sleeves, dresses with hems that dragged like chains, hats with brims that dripped dark, viscous fluid. They were all alive, and they were all watching. Django turned to Amara, his face suddenly soft. You are not here to stop me, child. You are here to witness, to tell the story, so that when they come, they will know why. The first suit, Kofi's, took another step, then another. It reached out a hand toward the door. Let us go, it whispered, and the others echoed a chorus of the dead. Let us go! Let us go! Let us go! Amara fell to her knees. The air grew colder. The lamp flickered. And in that moment, she saw it, not with her eyes, but with her soul. She saw the village asleep, unaware. She saw the chief, snoring in his bed, a golden bracelet on his wrist. She saw the elders feasting on goat meat, laughing while the poor starved at their gates. She saw the children barefoot in the dust, their bellies swollen with hunger, and she understood. Django had not gone mad. He had gone holy. But the cost? The cost was written in the eyes of the living garments, in their hunger, in their rage. And she knew, if they walked out that door, Mwamba would burn. But before she could speak, before she could even breathe, the door burst open. And standing there, silhouetted by moonlight, was her mother. "Amara!" her mother cried, rushing forward. "I've been searching for you. The dream, it came to me too, I saw." Her voice died. She saw the suits, she saw Django, and she saw the truth. "Oh, Django," she whispered. "Not again." Django's face twisted in pain. "You know?" "I know," she said. "I was there. When Kofi was buried, I was the one who screamed for them to stop, but no one listened. I buried my own shame with him." She stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "But this is not justice. This is madness. You are not giving them life. You are giving them vengeance. And vengeance is a fire that burns the avenger as much as the accused." The suits paused. Kofi's voice cracked. "We want justice. And you shall have it," Amara's mother said, her voice steady. "But not like this. Not with blood. Not with fear. Django, you have the gift, the true gift. You can speak to the dead. You can heal them. Not with revenge, with truth." Django stared at her. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, he turned to the suits. I thought I was helping," he said, voice breaking. "I thought I was giving them back what was stolen. But maybe I was stealing something from them too." The village, near the river, where the women came to wash clothes and children played in the shallows. His hands were magic. With thread and needle, he could make cloth sing. A wedding dress that shimmered like moonlight on water. A chief's robe that bore the patterns of the ancestors, stitched so finely they seemed to breathe. He was the tailor of dreams, and he was kind. He gave free repairs to the poor. He taught orphans to sew. He sang while he worked, old songs of the river, of the forest, of the great lion who once walked the plains and taught men the value of silence. But Django had a secret. He could hear the dead, not in the way of a priest or a witch doctor, not with drums and chants, but in the cloth. He would take a garment, a shirt, a skirt, a blanket that had belonged to someone who had died, and as he stitched it, he would hear whispers, not voices, not words, but feelings, grief, regret, anger, longing. At first he thought it was imagination. Then one night he repaired a shawl that had belonged to a woman who had drowned in the river. As he sewed, he saw her, not with his eyes, but in his mind. She stood on the riverbank, her hair wet, her eyes pleading. "They pushed me," the vision whispered. "They said I stole, but I only took what was mine. My child was hungry." Django dropped the needle. The next day, he asked around. And yes, the woman Amina had died under mysterious circumstances. The elders said she had drowned while washing. But Django knew the truth, and he was angry. He began to collect, not just cloth, but remains, a scrap of skin from a grave, a tuft of hair from a burial site, a shard of bone from a forgotten tomb. He would take them in secret at night under the cover of rain or storm, and he would sew them into garments. At first it was just a test, a way to preserve the dead, to give them a voice. But then the garments moved, not at first, but slowly. A sleeve would twitch, a hem would ripple, a collar would rise as if the wearer were turning their head. And then one night, a coat he had made from a farmer's burial shroud sat up. Django was not afraid. He was awakened. He realized he had a power, not just to hear the dead, but to reawaken them. Not fully. Not as they were, but as shadows with purpose. And he knew what that purpose must be. Justice. The village of Mwamba was not what it seemed. On the surface, it was peaceful. Children played in the square, elders sat beneath the baobab telling stories. The market bustled with traders from distant lands, but beneath the laughter, beneath the drumbeats, was a rot. The Chief Mwamba, named after the village itself, was a man of iron and greed. He took the best land for himself. He taxed the poor into starvation. He silenced dissent with beatings or exile. And when someone died under suspicious circumstances, he would say, "It is the will of the ancestors." And the village would nod and look away. Django had seen it all. And now, with his power, he could act. He began to gather the forgotten. First, it was Kofi, the farmer with the gold. Then, it was Nala, the midwife who had been accused of causing a stillbirth. She had been stoned to death, her body left in the bush. Django found her bones, wrapped in a torn dress. He sewed her into a gown, long, flowing, with sleeves that reached to the floor. And when he finished, the gown rose. "They killed me for saving a child," it whispered. "I only did what my mother taught me." Then it was Chidi, a boy who had stolen food from the chief's granary. He had been beaten and left to die in the sun. His mother had begged for mercy, but the chief said, "Theft is a sin against the ancestors." Chidi's body was buried in a shallow grave where the jackals could find it. Django took a piece of his shirt, a scrap of his skin, a lock of his hair. He sewed him into a boy's tunic, simple brown with a patch on the sleeve, and when it stood, it looked like a child. But its eyes were ancient. "I was hungry," it said. "I only wanted to live." And so it went. One by one, Django gave the forgotten a form, not life, but presence. And each time the garment would move, would speak, would remember. At first, Django kept them hidden, in the back of his hut, in chests lined with sacred herbs. He would visit them at night, speaking to them, comforting them, telling them their stories would be heard. But the more he did it, the more the power consumed him. He stopped singing. He stopped smiling. He stopped repairing clothes for the living. The villagers noticed. "Django is changed," they whispered. "He no longer sings. He stares into the fire, and his eyes, they are not his own." Amara's mother, Mama Zainab, was one of the few who still visited. She brought him food. She asked about his work, but Django would only say, "The dead are restless, Zainab, and I am their voice." She didn't understand. Not until the night of the market fire. It happened during the festival of the first harvest. The village was alive with music, dancing, and the smell of roasting goat and cassava bread. The chief stood on a platform, giving a speech about prosperity and unity. And then, from the shadows, a man stepped forward. But he was not a man. He wore a suit of black cloth stitched with silver thread. His face was hidden behind a high collar. His hands were long, fingers like claws, and when he spoke, his voice was not his own. "Chief Mwamba," it said, "you took my gold. You buried me alive. You said the ancestors would judge me, but the ancestors are silent, so I have come to judge you." The crowd gasped, the chief paled, and then the fire. From the suit's sleeves, flames burst forth, not real fire, but spirit fire. A blue, half-dancing flame that did not burn the cloth, but consumed the chief's shadow. The chief screamed, his shadow ripped from his body and was devoured. He collapsed, sobbing, muttering, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." The suit, Kofi's suit, turned to the crowd. "Remember me," it said. "Remember what they did, and never let it happen again." Then it walked into the river and dissolved into mist. The village was in shock. The chief was broken. He resigned the next day. He gave the gold to the poor. He even visited Kofi's mother and begged forgiveness. And for a time, justice seemed to have won. But Django was not satisfied, because the others were still waiting. Nala, Chidi, the others whose names had been erased, and he knew one act of justice was not enough. The village had learned from Kofi's return. But they had not repented. They had not changed. And so Django made a decision. He would not send them one by one. He would send them all, together, and they would walk into the village. They would speak, and they would judge. He began to prepare. He stitched faster. He worked through the night. He added more pieces, more skin, more hair, more bone to each garment. He made them stronger, more alive, and the garments began to change. They no longer needed his voice to speak. They began to dream. They began to plot, and they began to hate. One night, Amara had her first dream. She was walking through the village at night. The houses were dark. The square was empty. But then, from every hut, a figure emerged. A man in a coat that moved like water. A woman in a dress that trailed like smoke. A child in a tunic that whispered her name. They surrounded her, and one by one they said, "We are coming. We are coming. We are coming." She woke in a cold sweat. She told her mother. Mama Zainab dismissed it as a nightmare. But then she dreamed it. And then others dreamed it. The dream spread like a fever. People woke screaming. Children refused to sleep. The elders called a council. "It is a curse," said Elder Boma. "A spirit is angry. We must perform a cleansing." But Mama Zainab knew better. She went to Django's hut. He was not there, but the hut was alive. The mannequins moved when she wasn't looking. The cloth whispered. The air smelled of grave soil and burnt hair, and in the chest she found them, the garments, each one labeled with a name. Kofi, Nala, Chidi, Lena, Tunde, Amara. Her heart stopped. There was a dress, small, simple, blue, with a tag that said Amara, and beside it a note. For the dreamer, so she may carry the story. She ran. She told the chief, the elders, the village, but no one believed her. Django is a good man, they said. He would never harm us. But he is not just a man, she pleaded. He is a bridge, and the bridge is breaking. No one listened. And so the dreams continued, and the garments grew stronger. They began to leave the hut, not all at once, just one. Then another. They were seen near the river, in the market, at the edge of the forest, always at night, always silent, and always watching. Then one morning a child was found dead in the square. No wound, no mark, but his eyes were open, and his shadow was gone. The village panicked. They called a witch doctor. He danced, he chanted, he threw bones. And then he said, "The dead are coming, not to haunt, but to judge. And the judge is the tailor." Now they believed. They marched to Django's hut, but he was ready. He opened the door, and behind him the garments stood, not as mannequins, as beings. And Django said, "You are too late. They are awake, and they are hungry." The villagers fell back. The witch doctor fled. Only Mama Zainab stayed. "Django," she said, "this is not the way. It is the only way," he said. "They must feel the weight of what they did. They must know the pain." "And then what?" she asked. "Will you burn the village to the ground? Will you kill the children who had no part in this? Will you become what you hate?" Django hesitated. And in that moment, the garments moved. They stepped forward, not toward the villagers, but toward him. Kofi's suit reached out and touched Django's face. "You gave us a voice," it said, "but now you must listen." Nala's gown whispered, "We do not want blood. We want truth." Chidi's tunic said, "We want our names spoken. We want our stories told. We want our mothers to cry for us." Django fell to his knees. I only wanted justice," he wept. "And you shall have it," said Kofi. "But not with fire, with memory." And so a new plan was born. Not revenge, but revelation. Django would not let them walk into the village as avengers. He would let them walk in as witnesses. And he would tell their stories, all of them, in the square under the full moon. The villagers would listen, or they would face the consequences. And so the night came. The square was packed. The elders sat on stools, the chief stood, head bowed, the children were kept inside. Django stood on a platform, a lantern in his hand, and behind him the garments stood in a line, silent, still, but present. Django began to speak. He told of Kofi, of the gold, of the beating, of the riverbank grave. He pulled a piece of the suit from his pocket, a scrap of skin stitched to a thread. "This," he said, "is what remains of a man who only wanted to feed his family." He told of Nala, of the stillbirth, of the stoning, of the bush where her bones were found. He held up a lock of hair from the gown. "This," he said, "is what remains of a healer who saved more lives than any doctor." He told of Chidi, of the hunger, of the beating, of the shallow grave. He showed a patch of the tunic. "This," he said, "is what remains of a child who only wanted to live." One by one, he told their stories. And as he spoke, the garments moved, not with rage, but with grief. Kofi's suit wept dark tears that evaporated before they hit the ground. Nala's gown trembled, as if remembering the stones. Chidi's tunic whispered, "Mama, I'm sorry I stole." The villagers wept. The chief fell to his knees. "I am sorry," he sobbed. "I was greedy. I was afraid. I thought power was mine by birth, but it is not. It is by service, and I failed." The elders bowed their heads. A woman stepped forward, Kofi's mother. She walked to the suit and placed a hand on its chest. "My son," she said, "I am sorry I could not save you, but I will speak your name every day. I will tell your story to my grandchildren. You will not be forgotten." Another woman, Nala's sister, knelt before the gown. "You were the best midwife I ever knew," she said. "I will name my next daughter after you." And a boy, Chidi's best friend, ran to the tunic and hugged it. "You were my brother," he said. "I'll never forget you." The air changed, the tension broke, the garments relaxed, and then, one by one, they began to fade, not disappear, but return. Kofi's suit bowed to his mother. Nala's gown touched her sister's face. Chidi's tunic waved at his friend. And then, slowly, they dissolved into light, soft, golden, like fireflies rising into the sky. Django stood alone. The villagers stared. No one spoke. Then Mama Zainab stepped forward. You did not give them life, she said softly. You gave them peace, Django nodded. So with human parts. He sewed with memory. He made garments for the living, wedding dresses, festival robes, school uniforms. And when he stitched, he whispered, not to the dead, but to the future. Remember us, remember them, remember what happens when we look away. And sometimes on quiet nights, the villagers would see a light in Django's hut and hear a humming, not of a machine, but of a needle. And they knew he was not just a tailor, he was a keeper of the past, a weaver of truth. And the garments he made now, they did not move, but they spoke, in the way a mother's shawl might hold the scent of her child, in the way a soldier's uniform might carry the weight of war, in the way a simple dress might whisper, I am here, I was here, I mattered. Years passed. Amara grew. She became a teacher. She told the story of the evil tailor to her students, not to scare them, but to teach them. The evil was not in the sewing, she would say. It was in the silence. It was in the forgetting. It was in the people who looked away when the chief took the gold, when the midwife was stoned, when the child was beaten. The tailor did not start the fire, she said. He only revealed it. And one day a student asked, but what if the garments had walked into the village with rage? What if they had burned it down? Amara smiled. Then, she said, the village would have been destroyed. But the truth would have been lost, and the next generation would have known only fear, not understanding. Justice, she said, is not about punishment. It is about recognition. It is about saying, I see you, I hear you, I am sorry, and then changing so it never happens again.